Hey, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning if you're elsewhere, or good evening. Um, Welcome. Gonna be a full episode today. If you saw the thumbnail, we've got a couple of old friends. Ricky Martin, Leticia Stauch. You guys remember Leticia Stauch? No crazy woman that was writing to the judge about her case like all the time. Yeah, her. And we also have a very old case to go over that was just settled. The Dawson murder. And you guys remember the shopping cart killer? Just we mentioned that, oh gosh, back in January of this year. And there's been a little movement. Not much, unfortunately, but a little bit movement on that case. So we're going to go over all of that. Well, we're going to start with Ricky Martin. He's been in the news again. Unfortunately, Ricky Martin, his legal they may have stopped investigating him in Puerto Rico, but like his legal issues are not over. You remember earlier reported in the summer that he was served with that protective order in Puerto Rico, with allegations of domestic abuse. It, on from his nephew. Okay, it turned out that it was filed without the identity being told. It was kept under wraps because that's the way the law is in Puerto Rico. There, they keep everything. They're very protective of those filing those orders. And basically, a couple of weeks later, the actual nephew went into court and actually had to give a statement, and it was said that it was untrue, that the allegations did not hold water, and the whole protective order thing was dismissed. So you would think things would get better. It was in the news for a while, you know. Um, and it was big news. It was very damaging to Ricky Martin, publicly, to be accused of such things. The nephew was older. He said that he made accusations of him being obsessed and never letting him alone, harassing him, being abusive, and even alleging that things may have started when he was of a younger age. It was really nasty. Just very unfortunate that that had to all be put out into the press, the way that it was. But the accusations were there. He filed a protective order. He put it all down in writing, and then had to retract it all in a court of law. So with restraining orders, you get a temporary one first in most cases, and that was all the new legislation that came through based on. Remember, with all that Me Too movement and everything, all of this came forward based on new allegate. You could get them easier, and then there's a 2-week waiting period. You go to court and you find out if it's valid or not. But it's meant to actually make a safe way for you to get away from an abuser, or to actually give the time for you to resettle whatever, and to give immediate protection in those cases that it's absolutely necessary, where there is violence and great danger. So you want to do that, but it doesn't become permanent until you go back to court. You have to go back to court and prove allegations. You can't just say these allegations. You can get a temporary, it's very easy, but you can't get a permanent. You can't actually get the actual order of protection permanent unless it's verified. Hey, Deb, welcome. And so that's what happened with him, back in July and August, okay, in the beginning of August, okay. That early July restraining order was everywhere. The unnamed petitioner said he had fears for his safety, his life. He really played it up for the court. Then the unnamed person just got named, and it turned out to be that it was his nephew, 21-year-old nephew, of Ricky Martin's. And he actually was making all these false allegations. Ricky Martin's own family came forward, if you remember, and gave statements to the press and everyone, and offered to go to court to say that this nephew, okay, is absolutely unstable, totally unstable. Okay, he's got problems. He really shouldn't be out there at all. His name is Dennis Sanchez, and I'm mentioning his name now. I didn't before. When we did the other case, I really kind of tried to stay away from it as much, because of the allegations that he was mentally unstable, things were going on, everything. I didn't want to help put his name out there to where people would be going at them and accusing them. I could just anticipate a lot of pushback on this young man. And it already was apparent that he had some serious issues. I mean, all these false allegations and everything going on. It was terrible. What I'm mentioning his name now because Ricky Martin is suing him. He is suing him because apparently after the judge dismissed the case in July, okay, the judge said it was determined there was no need to extend the protective order because everything, Sanchez is actually taking back his allegations. He said there was never anything more. The actual attorneys came out with a statement that said it was never anything more than a troubled individual making false allegations with absolutely nothing to substantiate them. And they're glad that the client saw justice and he can move forward with his life and career. Remember, I played the statement, that during that other episode that we had from Ricky Martin himself. He gave a his thanks to everyone for the support, but you could see on the man the wearing of this. Well, apparently, just on the 7th of this month, Martin filed in Puerto Rico against his nephew because apparently the nephew will not stop contacting him. He will not leave him alone. Okay. He is telling him, he's sending him DMs on Instagram. He's all over the place. And Martin's just tired of it. Ricky Martin says that this kid is allegedly threatening to assassinate his reputation and integrity unless he pays him an undisclosed amount of money to be left alone. He's looking to Martin to actually pave his way. He says being Martin's nephew has caused him great distress because Martin is famous and he's not. And that he should share the wealth, I guess, is what he's going on. All right. And Ricky Martin, this isn't his only lawsuit. I am actually glad he's trying to stop this by filing a lawsuit. Now, it's a double-edged sword, right? You're all going to say, like, why, if you want these allegations to go away, why would you sue him, right? Why are you going to put it out in the press more? Give them more to chew on, keep it going. It's the amount of things that this kid is doing. He keeps contacting him. He keeps spreading the rumors. He is actually harassing Ricky Martin to no end. Like, unbelievably. It's like, and because it's family, he has ways to find out how he is, where he is, what he's going on. It's really hard to keep away. So this is Martin's pushback. He's going, he's just like, no. And he doesn't want anybody else to do this either. Because, remember, Ricky Martin still has that other lawsuit. He's still in a lawsuit with Rebecca Drucker, his ex-manager, who's claiming more than $3 million that she's owed in unpaid commissions. But she's also part of these allegations because in her lawsuit, she included a reference to potentially career-ending allegations that she helped Martin work through, and that's what she's been unpaid for. Yeah. And then right after she filed this lawsuit is when the nephew came forward. So I've always thought that was a little sus. I don't want to say they're in cahoots together, but to me, it just looks like a little perfect timing, just like little boxes. It's just kind of lining up. Either way, whether they are in it together or not, it does line up to be a perfect publicity hit on Martin and done great damage, which seems to be what they both, whether together or separately, wanted, and yeah, I just love you, my friend. Oh, so the nephew's taking notes from Amber from the abuser's playbook. Just keep talking and stalking the other person. Exactly. Like, don't let it go away. Don't let it go away. Just keep going. We'll just keep saying it enough, and maybe people will believe it. Well, yeah, I hear you, Mandy, and I'm really feeling for Ricky Martin here because it seems like if you have money. They just think that they can abuse the hell out of you. They could say whatever the hell you want, and you're just going to pay for them to go away. Now, this is not a new tactic. There's been charlatans, grifters, and people like this all along. Scammers all along that go after people this way. Nothing new. It's just getting old and tiring. Really, really tiring to have to push against it because that protective order was dropped immediately. The nephew himself said he didn't have anything to support it. However, Ricky Martin's lawsuit is a little bit different. Okay. It's a little bit different. Okay. Now there's nothing else I can tell you about the Drucker lawsuit. Rebecca Drucker, the ex-manager who's going at him, that is still in negotiation back and forth. They're going through discovery, they're still going back and forth on whether that's even going to come through. That's a civil lawsuit, by the way, not criminal. Okay. And Ricky Martin is also filing a civil lawsuit. And let us go there now. All right. So in Ricky Martin's lawsuit, okay, very official, Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. Okay. His full name. The reason I can mention Dennis Yadel Sanchez Martin is now this is a permanent filing, and so I will mention him now because when you read, once I read a little bit of this to you, and I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. It's only 8 pages, but it's important. You're going to see the difference between somebody who just goes to court to get a TRO and does not have any documentation, doesn't bring any emails, any DMs, any Instagrams, any proof whatsoever as to why they're filing it. They're just allowed to make an oral statement, write it down in writing. They just tell them what they want. They say, okay, you got to fill out this form. In that form, there's a space where you tell them why you need this order. And it's almost always a given if there's any kind of threat, anything. If you believe that you are, in other words, if you believe you are being harassed and you are at a threat, okay, they're going to give it to you. In most states, okay, temporarily. In other words, it's one of those better safe than sorry laws. It does not mean the other party did anything wrong. It means we need time to figure this out. And in the meantime, let's separate the parties and make sure nobody gets hurt. That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea at all. Let me know if anybody else is spinning. I see that everything is connected well. Also, let me know. I do have some new tech here. So if you hear anything funny on the mic, I do appreciate when you guys let me know. I don't always see it on the monitors here. I'm getting a little bit better at it, but not great yet. So let me know, Mandy, if it's just you. That'd be cool. But yeah, lately, everybody just needs to know that this is actually just a temporary resolution, and it makes good sense. I actually support the law that goes that you can get a temporary restraining order. It's necessary a lot of the time. A lot of the time, it's absolutely necessary to separate the parties so you can figure out what's going on. It doesn't mean either party's guilty. It doesn't mean one's telling the truth or one's lying. It just means we're separating until we get the time. You got to go to court later, 2 weeks to a month later, and definitely to get a permanent restraining order with actual evidence to provide that the other party has done anything wrong. All right. Which wasn't done in the Ricky Martin case. There was no evidence, and it got tossed completely, reversed, and actually put out there that it was a false allegation based on Dennis Sanchez's own statements. He's the one who said it wasn't good. Okay. It wasn't good. Okay, so here comes Ricky Martin with his undersigned counsel. Okay, they're going to present the case of a world famous artist who is being persecuted, besieged, harassed, stalked, extorted by a maladjusted person whose interest to obtain an economic benefit, or in the alternative, will continue his eagerness to assassinate the reputation and integrity of the artist. The situation has continued despite the defendant voluntarily withdrawing from an action he commenced against the plaintiff based on falsehoods, during which he admitted under oath that he had never been sexually assaulted by the plaintiff. Okay, so then it's going to tell us who the parties are. They are Ricky Martin, okay, his full name being Enrique Martin Morales, better known as Ricky Martin, and gives his address, and the defendant being clearly named as Dennis Yadel Sanchez Martin, here as known as Sanchez, who is legally of age, okay, with capacity to be sued in suit. Now that's important. They're not saying like they're saying he's acting crazy, but they're saying he's not crazy. He knows what he's doing. Okay. And here are the facts of the case. All right. The plaintiff is a world-class and world-famous artist who began working at the tender age of 12 years old, achieving fame as a member of the musical group Menudo, We all remember. After finishing his participation with said group, plaintiff continued his musical career as a soloist until this present day. Ricky Martin's in his 50s, becoming known worldwide not only for his artistic talent, but for his arduous and tireless humanitarian and social work against human trafficking. Yeah, Ricky Martin does good work. He does. He speaks out against human trafficking and slavery, against children and women sex slaves, constantly. Defendant Sanchez is plaintiff's nephew. Defendant Sanchez's mother is plaintiff's sister. According to information and belief at this time, defendant Sanchez resides with his father. Defendant Sanchez publicly boasted being plaintiff Ricky Martin's nephew. From approximately, here it goes, people, October of 2021 to January of 2022, Sanchez was sending constant messages to plaintiff through the WhatsApp and Instagram platforms. Sometimes messages exceeded more than 10 in a single day. For the most part, the messages were meaningless and purposeless diatribes, written clearly by a maladjusted individual. However, in a role of uncle, plaintiff answered them when he could, trying to provide him with words of encouragement and desires for improvement. During the month of November, Sanchez sent several messages to the plaintiff, declaring in a form totally disconnected from reality that being his nephew and saying it publicly, he stopped being a normal person and could be whoever he wanted. That is, that being his nephew made him feel that he was somebody. In mid December 2021, and in his desperate desire for attention, defendant Sanchez sent plaintiff a photo of his profile on his Instagram page, telling him that he loved him very much and asked plaintiff to follow him or give him a follow on Instagram in order for him to boast being plaintiff's nephew. And so plaintiff did not do so. In his insistence and unbridled pattern of gaining plaintiff's attention, on December 23rd of 2021, Sanchez sent a message indicating that he wanted to take plaintiff's minor children to the movie theater, to which plaintiff immediately replied no. On January 14th of 2022, defendant Sanchez sent a message to plaintiff informing him that he had to create a page for one of plaintiff's minor children. Naturally, plaintiff, who did not in any way wish for any information about his children to be published without their consent, was greatly dismayed and ignored all the messages that defendant Sanchez subsequently sent him. As an act of retaliation for the silence and lack of attention from Ricky, defendant Sanchez published on his social networks, specifically on Instagram, Ricky Martin, followed by plaintiff's very private cell phone number. As a result of such publication, plaintiff began to receive calls alerting him of what Sanchez had done. Yeah, he put his phone number out on Instagram. Yeah. Yes. Yes, he did. I mean, that's suable enough right there. People like, damn. I'm telling you, this is great. This is insane. Defendant Sanchez made such publication precisely in order for plaintiff to be harassed with innumerable calls to his cell phone, and in this way has caused him harm. As a consequence of such culpable action, defendant Sanchez, plaintiff had no alternative but to immediately change his cell phone number. I mean, what's he going to do? I mean, it's not like he can screen the calls. He's Ricky Martin. Like, people probably went nuts. They went nuts. Sorry. All right, that's done. Oh, forgot to turn the phone off. Sorry, guys. Several months passed without plaintiff having any communication with Sanchez. However, in July, without probable cause or any bias, defendant Sanchez went to court for a protective order. Okay, and we all know the result of that. In his request for the protective order, Sanchez alleged that the plaintiff had a romantic relationship with the defendant for 7 months and that it ended 2 months prior. He further claimed that Ricky did not accept that the allegation relationship ended and that he called him frequently. Nothing could be further from the truth, they state. Finally, defendant Sanchez indicated that he feared for his safety since he had seen plaintiff prowling his residence on at least 3 occasions. A totally false accusations, since at the time, plaintiff had been residing in California uninterruptedly since May 28th, okay, of 2022. You okay, wait a minute. Oh, answer the phone. It's Ricky. Nope, it's not. Yeah. Mandy, Mandy, are you going to give my number? She's just kidding. I'm posting it on YouTube. Don't go for her. She's just kidding. God. Anyway, this case is unbelievable. I'm telling you, like listen, I'm glad he's doing this, and they're doing a well job of documenting this. You see how they're documenting like every single transaction that happened and showing that Ricky Martin was not encouraging these things. And so I'm just telling you, I'm, Defendant Sanchez made the accusations contained in his request for a protective order maliciously. That's an important word there. Okay. Without any probable cause, with serious disregard for the truth and knowing that they were false. Hey, Mandy, does that sound like defamation to you? Sounds like it's all proved, like right there, right there, in the, mhm. However, the same day, the Honorable Judge Reza Kajigas Campbell, hell, I can't say that properly. Don't come for me, YouTube. Let's just say Judge Campbell held an ex parte hearing and issued a provisional ex parte protective order in favor of Sanchez. Yes, he did, because that's what they do. It was valid for 20 days, expiring on the 21st. During the initial hearing, under oath, Defendant Sanchez admitted that he had not spoken to plaintiff for a long time and that plaintiff had never assaulted him sexually or in any other form. Okay, in any other form. All right. Defendant Sanchez knew and had the expectation that his application for the protective order would be granted, as it was an ex parte proceeding. Similarly, and you know that ex parte means no one has to be there. You don't even have to notify the other party. Like, they don't get to say. It's part of the process. All right. Similarly, Defendant Sanchez knew and had the expectation that once granted, that protective order would be public knowledge worldwide, since the plaintiff is a world famous artist. Mandy, that's Jenny's number. Stop giving out Jenny's number. She's getting pissed. Okay. Order would be, all right, this protective order would be public knowledge, and that's what happened. It was everywhere. Okay. Defendant Sanchez arrived at the offices of the newspaper El Vocero and personally left a copy of the protective order at reception, with the intention that the news be disseminated in the media immediately. Apropos, it was reported in most of the written and televised media in Puerto Rico and internationally. As you know, CNN, ABC, NBC, New York Times, everybody over here knew about it. We knew about it, right? We reported on it. We brought it forth up here on YouTube, and so did many, many other people. Okay. The mere publication that a provisional ex parte protective order under Act 47 was issued against plaintiff, albeit based on false allegations, created a cloud of suspicion that irretrievably strained plaintiff's reputation. So much so that plaintiff saw his business opportunities threatened, that if it had not been for the malicious actions of the defendant Sanchez, they would not have been in any danger. The plaintiff, while in California with his children, learned that defendant Sanchez had requested for and obtained an ex parte protective order against him in Puerto Rico. Plaintiff, who has always respected the law and order and who has stood out worldwide for his humanitarian and philanthropic fight against human trafficking, felt confused and incredulous. And I don't blame him, because he don't deserve this. On July 4th, plaintiff was summoned through attorney Camila de Villa Torres and was given the ex parte protective order. In the order, plaintiff was ordered to appear on July 21st at an adjudicative hearing, where they're going to actually look for the evidence on whether this should go forward, and could give him an opportunity to be heard in accordance with his constitutional right to due process and to defend against defendant Sanchez's false allegation. On July 5th, Sanchez contacted the attorney who had already been publicly identified by the media as plaintiff's lawyer and spoke with his secretary, to whom he said that the reason for his call was that he was interested in an appointment with the attorney. The attorney did not speak with Sanchez. By information and belief, plaintiff understands that defendant Sanchez made such a call with the purpose of attempting to negotiate economic benefit in exchange for withdrawing his request for a protective order. That's a huge allegation there. That is huge. Now, the lawyer should not have talked to him because they've got a case going each other, but the secretary did. So she's going to be able to testify in court whatever he said to her. And let's just hope for his sake he didn't actually say they were going to actually work out a monetary thing. He doesn't seem to mince his words. He kind of lets everybody know exactly what he's going by. And I mean, he, meaning defendant Sanchez here, he has really kind of laid out the case for them quite well. On July 7th, on instructions of the attorney, the secretary contacted defendant Sanchez to ask if for the appointment he was interested in coordinating, he would be accompanied by a lawyer, family member, or a third party. And Sanchez replied that he had hired legal representation, but that he did not know his full name, only his nickname, and that he wouldn't give it. Faced with this situation, of course, the attorney did not meet with defendant Sanchez. Okay. Oh, thus the day of the hearing on the 21st, during which plaintiff would have his right to defend himself against the lies and falsehoods that defendant Sanchez had already attributed to him. The plaintiff appeared virtually accompanied by his lawyers ready to defend against all false accusations. For his part, defendant Sanchez appeared virtually at the hearing accompanied by his legal representative, which was attorney Jessica Bernard of the Office of the Integral Development of Women of the Municipality of San Juan. At the beginning of the hearing, the Honorable Judge Campbell asked the parties if they were prepared to begin the hearing, to which both responded affirmative. The court then proceeded. Now, they're just saying that this was all done. The reason they're laying this out, and I know it's tedious, but the reason they're laying that out in the case is to say that they followed all protocol, that he actually was represented by an attorney. They're going to use the evidence of what he said in this actual proceeding against him. So they have to actually lay it out that it was all done under the guides and legally, step by step, followed every case. He had an attorney. Everybody was said, are you ready to go forward? The judge was in full awareness that everybody was in compliance. Everybody was sound. There wasn't anything going on. Basically, so the defendant, Sanchez, can't say things like, I was under duress, I wasn't represented, I didn't understand what was going on, you can't use my words against me, I was out of my mind. It kind of looks a little bit like he was out of his mind, but not like he didn't know what he was doing. Okay. So therefore, at that time, defendant Sanchez testified under oath that he made the decision to voluntarily desist from the actions against plaintiff, and that he had not been concerned in any coerced in any way to do it. In turn, the judge asked the defendant directly if he agreed with everything that his legal representative had informed, and he reiterated to the court his desire to close this case against the plaintiff, and stated that he did not receive a threat, coercion, or money to desist from the action. Thus, plaintiff left shattered but airy from the process maliciously urged against him by Sanchez. And it was closed. Okay. Defendant Sanchez has already an experienced citizen in matters of protective orders for stalking, considering that the court of first instance, Superior Chamber of San Juan, has issued 2 protective orders for stalking against defendant Sanchez for having threatened to destroy her, Claudia Ramirez Martel, and later to her boyfriend. And then it gives the case numbers. And it says that the Court of Appeals of Puerto Rico. All right, both protective orders for stalking against defendant Sanchez are in effect. Now, here we go. He puts a temporary against Ricky Martin, which gets pulled back. And yet he has 2 against him that actually went all the way through and through appeal. And they're still in effect, which means they're permanent. Okay, they got granted fully. Who's the stalker here? Oh my gosh. Defendant Sanchez filled his request for the protective order based on malice and animosity against the plaintiff. They're making a huge allegation here for the mere fact that he failed to answer his multiple messages. Defendant Sanchez's request for that July 1st ex parte protection order lacked probable cause and was based on lies, actual malice, and was intended to harass and harm plaintiff and tarnish his reputation. Less than 1 month after the adjudication hearing, and as recent as August 12th and 14th, defendant Sanchez once again started sending messages to plaintiff through Instagram, again attempting to seek plaintiff's attention. These messages read, "Uncle, I need your help. How are you?" The persecution and stalking by defendant Sanchez have no other explanation than to cause even more harm than he has already done to the plaintiff. Defendant Sanchez has threatened to and extorted the plaintiff that unless he is economically compensated, he will continue with his campaign to assassinate his reputation and integrity through false and malicious imputations. The reckless and malicious and culpable actions of defendant Sanchez were motivated by the desire to expose plaintiff to hatred and disdain from his fan base, to threaten his business opportunities, and to destroy his reputation. As a matter of fact, such actions caused plaintiff to have multi-million-dollar contracts and future artistic projects canceled. The pecuniary damages caused as a result of these actions are quantified in an amount not less than $10 million. In addition, such culpable actions have also caused damage to plaintiff's reputation, who, until the protective order became public knowledge, enjoyed an impeccable reputation earned through his long artistic and altruistic career for the almost 40 years of his life. Such damages to plaintiff's reputations are quantified at the date of the filing this lawsuit in an amount not less than $20 million. Defendant Sanchez is liable to plaintiff for all the damages caused by his negligent and or culpable actions and or omissions described above. Defendant Sanchez's actions have caused plaintiff and his family to feel unsafe in Puerto Rico. And in accordance with Article 18 of the Puerto Rico Civil Code and Rule 56 of Civil Procedure, plaintiff requests that this honorable court order defendant Sanchez to immediately refrain from communicating with plaintiff and his family, either personally, by telephone, and or through social networks. And therefore, we respectfully request that, in merit of all the above, the honorable court condemn defendant to the payment of the damages claimed, as well as interest, costs, and attorney's fees. The end. Now, that's a pretty good case. I don't know about you guys, but he is 50. Yes, Mrs. Cassandra, and he looks great, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. Yep. He started his career at 12. So, yep, 40 some odd years now he's been out there. So, anyway, that case, that we're going to watch on that. They're asking for a restraining order and a no contact order right away. Okay. I do not know what moisturizer he uses. That has been asked before, and I did look for it a little bit, but I didn't find it. And I do see I didn't take that comment down. So it's like, I have no idea. Yeah. You know what, Mrs. Cassandra, my mouth is, I do have a head cold, so I apologize for all the mispronunciations, stuttering, and just the actual awful quality of my voice today. But I didn't want to cancel because there was just so much here. And on to the next. I mean, unless you have any questions about what's going on with Ricky Martin right now, but that's pretty much all of it. Okay. I would like to tell you about Leticia Stauch. Does anybody remember Leticia Stauch? I mean, I can't forget Leticia Stauch. Okay. I'll just give you a little brief reminder. She is being charged with the murder of her stepson. She's been quite contrary in her defense, so to speak, with her lawyers, with the judge, with everybody. There is evidence. I mean, you can go back to one of my older videos If needed, contact me. I can give you the exact one, but it is back there. I usually do put the name in the title, so if you search through, you'll find the title. But basically, she's a hot mess. She's a little whack. She actually wrote to the judge. All right, she's the one that I was going ballistic about because she was writing letters personally to the judge, telling the judge that she was the only one that could represent herself, that her and the judge needed to come to some kind of agreement because no one knew what they were doing with this case. And that she could actually, if she had a conversation with him, explain it to him in a way that could drop everything. Yeah. Yes, she did. And she kept at it. All right. Well, and the last time that I brought this up with you guys, we knew that she was going to go for an evaluation, a mental evaluation, okay, to see if she was fit to stand trial. Because after she actually tried to get she tried to claim that her cell phone was private and all of this, that she wanted all this evidence overturned. Like, you can't use the cell phone, you can't use the actual home monitoring film that showed her leaving and coming, to say when she was at certain places that actually proved she was lying to the cops. You can't use all of this statements from people, because it was personally invasive to her. She had these really weird reasons why we couldn't look at all this evidence. And I kind of felt bad for her attorneys because they are trying to do a very good job of representing her and trying not to let her get into as much trouble as she is. Okay. What she is. Yeah, I know, T King, that poor child, right? I mean, I don't like doing murder cases involving children. There are a few that I have. Stauch is one of them. The Daybell Vallow case is another that I've been following. I don't like these types of cases, but this one, she's she needs to really have a comeuppance for sure. But she does think she's smarter than everybody. I mean, that in itself is a little bit towards the insanity, which she is now claiming is her defense. After all of that, saying, no, you can't say I'm crazy, and this, that, and the evidence. And she didn't even want to appear for her own charges. You know how you have to appear in court when you're getting charged? You're supposed to hear. She wanted her lawyers to do it. She petitioned the court because she felt it was an atrocity that she was being charged, and she shouldn't have to hear it. I kid you not. I kid you not. She didn't even want to be there. She does not want to be there during the proceedings, whatever. Nothing. She doesn't want to hear what they have to say about her. She's using every angle she can to get out of this. Now, if she didn't appear, they have to go through this whole big thing and have it granted and have an official order stating that she gets out. Otherwise, procedure isn't followed. Okay. And everything that happens in the case can get overturned. It can get paused. It can get appealed. Okay. It can get overturned. Okay. She's just wily, the things that she is throwing out there, and she's really giving everyone involved with this case a major headache. Like, I wouldn't want to be the judge. I wouldn't want to be anybody involved with that case the way that she has been acting. She just doesn't like to follow the rules. So let me just tell you that. Well, she appeared in court back on Thursday, August 25th, I believe it was, August 25th, after the results of a state mental health evaluation to determine her sanity had been provided to the judge. She is accused, of course, of murdering her stepson, Gannon, back in 2020. And earlier this year, she pled not guilty by reason of insanity after other pleas. Okay. There was a reporter in a courtroom on Thursday, and they reported that judge, Gregory Warner, confirmed the court received the reports and that Stauch's attorneys were challenging the results and asking for a second evaluation. This is why I'm here telling you about it, because, okay, apparently they found her competent based on how wily she is, okay? But Stauch's defense said it would pay for the second evaluation, but they would like to use a state mental health facility as a location where it will be conducted. And the judge said that they were uncertain about the statute surrounding this request and set a court date for September 15th, that they're going to actually talk about it, because the judge actually requested the time and didn't want to just automatically say okay, because the judge has an issue here. This case has been delayed so many times. They want to check out the law as to when you get a competency hearing, How long do you have before you get to set the court date? And is the defense actually using this second competency just to delay things more? I think they're dotting their I's and crossing their T here, and I'm glad that Judge Warner's doing this because it will set precedent here as to what that actual procedure should actually be right after there. And if they had any doubt, they should check it out. Now it's only a few more days until we're going to know by the end of the week, and then next Monday I'll let you know if I find out what they actually are going to go forward with. But it's also told that she said if she does allow the second evaluation to be undertaken, not only are they going to have to pay for it, but audio and video recordings of the whole thing have to be made and provided to the prosecution, because from this moment forward, anything she says is going to be used against her in the trial, and that prosecution is fully allowed to do that. Okay. The defense said that the psychiatrist that it wants to use is from out of state and hopes to have the results within 30 days if they allow the conducting the second evaluation. All right. But between now and September 15th, which now is only a few days, the judge is going to research that statute about the trial date, because she's pretty sure you have to set a trial date immediately after a mental health report is made available. Now, remember, the mental health report is already on file with the court. It's come through. The original issued one, request and order by the court, has been fulfilled, and that report is on file. And now things are supposed to go accordingly. And she's trying to figure out if defense is just asking for the second one because there might be an issue, or is this going to delaying it? Is it going to delay it? I mean, she might set the date anyway and say, we're going forward with what this report says, but you can present your second evaluation during the trial as contra if you like, but we're not going, we're going to go with this. I mean, she's got he has some options. Judge Warner has some options here. One of the reasons the judge brought this up is that the delays have been unbelievable in this. That mental health evaluation was supposed to be available to the court way back in June. There's been delays. They used the pandemic and the closing of facilities and the long issues and the long requests and the court systems being backed up as reasons for all of these delays. But when it wasn't available, they already went 6 weeks ahead, okay, to July. And at that hearing, the judge still didn't have the report, caused another delay. All right, so they're just getting that report now. They've already delayed this 3 times. And she's just, wants to make sure Judge Warner wants to make sure that they actually just dot all their I's and cross all their T's. Okay. Remember, Stauch is accused of killing her stepson, Gannon Stauch. He was reported missing January of 2020. Okay. It is now, September 2022. Okay. It was only a few months after his being missing that she was arrested for first-degree murder. I mean, just a couple of months later. It's taken a long time to get this processed. I mean, she was arrested March 2nd in South Carolina. Okay. They had found Gannon's body in Florida on the 18th. It didn't after she was arrested. Okay. Since March, she's been held in the El Paso County Jail. She faces dozens of charges, including first-degree murder, and she's been awaiting trial on the case for more than 2 years. All right. In September of 2020, state psychiatrists told the court that Stauch was competent enough to stand trial, but her attorneys asked for a second opinion, which they got. Okay. And exactly a year after her stepson was reported missing, Stauch was found competent to stand trial. Why don't we have a trial date? Okay. In September 2021, Warner determined that there is enough evidence against Stauch to proceed. Okay. However, she pled not guilty in November of 2021, and her attorney stated it was likely they're going to produce evidence that her mental condition after the disappearance of Gannon, but it wasn't that she had a mental condition that appeared after Gannon disappeared, but it wasn't exactly an insanity plea. And this is how this all started. She didn't want to actually plead insanity, but they wanted to use insanity as a condition of defense, but not plead it. Make that make sense. It doesn't to me, which caused all this shenanigans, okay? When Stouch finally changed her plea back in February of this year, it required the state to conduct another mental health evaluation, and Werner said he would not make a ruling on that motion to waive the jury trial without a report. And that's where we are now. We got the report. And since a third evaluation was ordered, there have been numbers of delays in getting that report from the court. However, we got it, and now we want to proceed. Okay. But the defense is going, what? Foul, 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 foul. Um, Foul, foul, foul. I do believe the stepson was 13 or 14, Robsky. I will go back to the original. I don't have my original file up here, but I do believe that that was the case. And anybody in the chat who can recall exactly, please tag me or Robsky. But I do believe he was a teenager, a young teenager, 13, 14. Yep. He was a youngster. Yeah, he was too young. At any age, too young. He didn't deserve it. Robsky, just to let you know, he was home from school that day for a stomach ache. He didn't feel well. And apparently there were things she wanted to do, and now she had to like watch him. And she was reportedly having some issues with the amount of attention her husband was paying her, and he was paying too much attention to his children lately. 11. Thank you, autistic Shill. Thank you. Or F Bear Eye Shilling Angel. Thank you. Shill. Thank you. 11. Yeah. So preteen. Yeah, damn. That's insane. Well, too young, much too young. But anyway, is she not like she's still causing havoc on the court system? And I just got to put this out here. When they do this, like I believe they do have a right to the best defense ever. But when they do cause all these kind of delays for shenanigans, how many mental evaluations do you need before they say, hey, like we said you were saying, this just proves it. You're just doing this. You're just doing this. Like you can act as crazy as you want, but you know what the hell you're doing. I mean, there's ways to tell. Shouldn't they have to pay for this? And I think this is why the judge is making them pay for this evaluation, even though they're offering to, because they know it's a problem. They know, if all of this comes down for it, um, basically she should have some kind of sanctions for how much she charged the court. Seriously. And so that when she's in prison getting her daily wage, a good portion of that should have to go back to the court system. I don't know the legalities of that or whatever, but it would be nice that they don't get away with it. Yes, Grace, shenanigans, shenanigans, shenanigans. There's just nothing but shenanigans. But anyway, so there's our one on. All right, that's two down. Okay, let's go. The next one we have, this is also an old case. All right, this one is being brought to light because of an article that was done in the Washington Post over the weekend from a woman who met the famous shopping cart killer online on a dating app. I guess, she had a story to tell. The Washington Post is reprinting it. This woman, Monica White, who you can see in the picture here, had a ongoing relationship with Anthony Robinson, the shopping cart killer. Now, to bring forward some information on Anthony Robinson, if you'll recall, he got the name shopping cart killer because they actually caught him on a camera removing bodies with a shopping cart from the supermarket to dump them in another place. They caught him on film. This is why you don't kill the shopping cart. You use the shopping cart to move the body, which is how he got the name Grace. I know it's like yeah, not so good. Okay, not so good. But anyway, there are 5 bodies being attributed to him. 5. He's only been charged to date on 2 of them. Anyway, I linked the Washington Post article about this woman's experience with this shopping cart killer, the dating app, how he was with her. It's all kind of fluff. He didn't do anything to her. He was a little weird or whatever. But during that article, they mentioned that he talked about someone he was engaged to that died all of a sudden. Okay. And the reason that that's interesting and piqued my curiosity as well as others, including federal investigators, um, they've opened up that case recently on the demise of his ex-fiancée. She died after spending the night with him. She died in a hospital, which was why they didn't think it was suspicious because she was found with a very faint heartbeat by a relative living in the same house. Robinson wasn't there at the time, but he had spent the night with her and then had left. Didn't tell everybody she had any problem. She went to the hospital. They could not revive her. She passed on. They didn't think it suspicious at the time until claims came out where Robinson's talking about it a lot. Well, things like, well, I was engaged to someone and they died. They had to. Yes, they had to. I'm free now. Things like that. And because of the other killings, now they're wondering if perhaps he had strangled her, like some of these other cases, these other bodies that they found, and that perhaps she may be the fifth victim. And that, I don't want to speculate that she is or not until the court actually says that she is. Okay. But they're re-examining that case. That was from 2018, and that Maryland woman was engaged to Robinson, and basically they're looking at it mostly because of his previous allegations. Okay. Um the woman who's giving the interview, uh she just talks about how weird he was, but she does mention that that he had been engaged to a woman who died, and that woman was Sky Allen, and she passed away on Valentine's Day in 2018, and that he had met them online just like he has this person in 2016, and that they were planning a wedding, and that they were living with her mother in Maryland. Um, it was the mother that found her daughter's body, took her to the hospital. She had a very faint heartbeat at the time, and the actual death certificate says that she died of a fatal cardiac arrhythmia. Um, it was not brought up as anything suspicious at the time. They didn't know about her passing. Nobody really had any suspicions at the time about Robinson. It was not, she was cremated following her death. There's not even a body to examine. But in January of 2022, a supervisor for the PGPD did actually speak to Alan's relatives, and based on those conversations, they're reviewing all the facts around her case and are looking at Robinson as being complicit. Um, Apparently, they had ended their relationship at a birthday party recently, and that he had made Robinson is accused of making some inappropriate comments to younger relatives and males at the party. Asked if he was interested in men and all of this other thing, and you know they basically, there was just a lot of turmoil, and they're not happy with the circumstances. I don't know. You see, the reason I'm hesitating to even go on with my speculation about that is because there's no body. They've only got the coroner's report. They've already said that it was a fatal cardiac arrhythmia, which is natural causes. Unless you can prove something on the body like strangulation, we'd have to just actually see. But no, yeah, you can't. But here's the disturbing part about this. Granted, in the Harrisonburg court, okay, in D.C., the shopping cart killer had gone to case goes to the grand jury, but there's still no charges about the bodies they found in Fairfax County in Virginia. Okay. The judge actually, that's the opposite, in DC, Fairfax County in DC, because the Harrisonburg, Virginia judge Monday ruled that there was definitely probable cause to charge Anthony Robinson with first-degree murder finally, after all this time, and will refer the case to a grand jury. The judge decided to refer the charge after he saw the video evidence that everybody's known about of Beth Redmond and Tanita Smith walking into room 336 of the Howard Johnson Motel with Robinson. And then Robinson, in each case, later leaving the room before dawn and retrieving a shopping cart. Soon after, video also shows him dragging that cart out of the room with body-sized items wrapped in sheets. That's why he's the shopping cart killer. Both of the women's bodies were found in Harrisonburg shortly before Robinson's arrest on November 23rd of 2021. He has been in custody since his arrest. Okay. Robinson was living at that motel as part of his compensation for working in a nearby chicken processing plant. He's charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and disposing of the bodies of Redmond, who was 54, and Smith, who was 39. Okay. Robinson is also suspected in 2 deaths in Fairfax County and 1 in DC, but hasn't been charged. Harrisonburg police detective Brooke Wetherell testified that she saw the 2 bodies lying in a tree line within sight of the motel. An autopsy showed that each of the women were found with plastic bags over their heads, their arms tied behind their backs with chunky black yarn. A prosecutor showed the judge a photo and receipt of Robinson in the nearby Walmart buying black yarn. Medical examiners were unable to determine how Redmond and Smith were murdered. The Charlottesville police called the Harrisonburg police to say that the cell phone of Smith, whose disappearance they were investigating, was pinging at that motel, and it was found inside room 336. Okay. Weatherfall also testimony, this is grand jury testimony in order to get him indicted, that Redmond's last phone call was to Robinson. And that's when police looked at the security video from the hotel. So they're trying to lay this out to you as to how they got there. When he was arrested, Robinson told the police that each of the women had overdosed on a white pill. He said he dumped the bodies because he didn't know what else to do. Robinson does have an attorney, Louis Nagy, and they suggested that the killings were not premeditated, but at least one woman was seen walking into room 336 and leaving 4 hours later unharmed. Nagy suggested that Redmond's charge be downgraded to second-degree murder. But prosecution, Marcia Gash, disagreed. They state that he purposely secreted their bodies and let them rot. He lured the women there. This was clearly a sadosexual killing, and he never called 911. He used them for what he wanted, then left them rotting with the maggots. The judge, John Stanley Hart, he is the chief judge of the Harrisonburg-Rockingham General District. He said that considering all the evidence, this appears to be a methodical plan to kill. The circumstantial evidence is very strong. And when Robinson was led out of the courtroom, a woman from the galley called, "Love you, Aunt." And he turned and looked at her as he was led away. He's got fans. Yes, killer with a fan. The grand jury will consider whether to indict the Robinson next Monday on September 19th. Another update coming your way, along with Leticia's. Okay. But in Fairfax County and DC, they have not brought charges against him. You know, last December, in a news conference, after 2 sets of human remains were discovered in Fairfax County, they dubbed Robinson the shopping cart killer. The remains were found in a large plastic container with a shopping cart nearby, near a motel called the Moon Inn in a wooded area near US Route 1 in the Huntington area of Alexandria. Now, the similarities of this are why they think Robinson is complicit to these bodies here. Okay. But there's been no charges yet. Okay, but last year, the chief of police, Kevin Davis, he called him the shopping cart killer. He said he was a serial killer of women at hotels and motels, and that he used shopping carts to dump their bodies, and that it was the same. The remains of those women were identified as Cheyenne Brown and Stephanie Harris. Okay, and Robinson has still not been charged in either of those deaths. He is also suspected, like I said to you, but not charged in the death of 40-year-old Sonia Champ of DC, whose body was found also in a shopping cart in Northeast DC in September of 2021. Okay, so we have 3 bodies with shopping carts that he's not been charged for still in Fairfax and in DC. Sources that are familiar with the case said that based on available information and evidence, prosecutors believe the cases against Robinson and Harrisonburg are the strongest, and he will face trial there before charges are lodged against him in Virginia and D.C. In other words, they want the strongest case to go forward before they start messing it up with these. Okay. They've said that they believe Robinson met most of his victims on dating apps, which is why the article that came out in the Washington Post got so much play. They have interviewed women who met Robinson and continue to seek others while coordinating with the other jurisdictions to determine whether previous unsolved murders or missing cases uh, might be linked, because he is now indicated as a serial killer with an MO. They have been investigating the circumstances of a woman who died in 2018. That was the fiance we spoke about. And that is inconclusive at this time. And there we go. That is our update on the shopping cart killer. Now we're going to go a little bit longer today, if that's okay with you guys, because I have one more. That was fascinating to me. Let me just pull this up. There's a case, a 40-year-old case that someone was just found guilty of. And this was dropped several times in the Discord. I want to thank Farillian, who resides in Australia and was familiar with this, and also for Robsky for bringing it to my attention that he did finally get found guilty. But apparently, Chris Dawson, accused of killing his wife Lynette Dawson back in 1982. Yeah, 1982. Okay, quite some time ago when he was quite young. Okay. This is him now. All right. In Supreme Court, the verdict was done just recently. Long story short, he's been found guilty of killing Lynette Dawson on Sydney's northern beaches 4 decades ago, the day of her disappearance. Circumstantial evidence, all kinds of stuff. Legally, this was but not like unbelievable as far as how this unfolded. And so let me just tell you why I am so fascinated by this. Not only because a case that's 40 years old finally got solved, put in a box, somebody, we know what happened, that's it. It was because of a blog. It was because of a true crime story by Hadley Thomas, okay, called Teacher's Pet. Okay. It went national. Okay. It was done in 2018. It hit the top of the charts. It was so good, so laid out. It was also many years after the crime. Okay. They never thought they had enough to go at him. All right. But this was a blog that revived a cold case and actually brought it to fruition despite defense. Now, you would think, okay, well, here's the thing. When people not involved in the case, like myself and several others, get involved and start talking about evidence and this, that, and the other thing, it can get kind of mucky when you get to the legal proceedings. And yes, his defense did try to get everything thrown out based on the interference of Hadley. Okay. But they brought Hadley into court. And they let Hadley testify. They let the witnesses that Hadley interviewed for the documentary that he did testify. And yet one or two of them said that yes, Hadley did influence them with the amount of things that he showed them. However, other witnesses said no. They actually had clear information. New things were brought forward. They were allowed to bring new information forward, and the judge let it all in. Okay. The judge let it all in. Okay. And in this case, there's no jury. And the reason there's no jury is because the defense petitioned the court to say, because of this podcast, because of all this info, there is no way we can get a fair trial. No one is going to be able to sit jury and be able to judge this case. So we don't want this case to go forward. They actually tried to get the whole thing tossed instead of just, moved. They wanted it tossed. They said there was nowhere in the world that you could go and not know about this. And it was true, because that podcast went international #1, not just Australia #1, not just over here #1, not just like True Crime Fanatic #1, like #1. It was phenomenal, the outreach. So much more that the judge thought that it was prudent, and so did the governing forces, to bring down the blog while the case went forward, because they didn't want any more interference. They didn't want any more time. So here's the negotiation that the judge then decided. Okay, you don't think you can get a fair jury trial? You're not going to get one, but you're still going to trial. It will be, as is allowed in UK law and Australian law, judge only. The judge gets to decide. Okay, judge gets to go over all the evidence. All you're talking to is the judge the whole time. No jury at all. The difference here is at the end, when the judge decides guilty or not guilty, he has to give his reasons. He has to lay them out. Okay, that's part of the process. But that's good for us, because then we get to know what he's thinking. And we get to know actually why he went forward with it. Okay, the way that he did. All right. So basically, 40 years ago, in January 1982, she went missing. All right, I want to actually just bring up a picture for you instead of going through all the papers, which can be quite nerve-wracking on the eyes. Let us look at their wedding picture while I talk to you. This was them 40 years ago plus, okay, or less than 40 years ago. They were married. Everything seemed fine. Chris Dawson was having an affair with a student that he met while being a physical education teacher, a young girl. The motive for this crime is said to be that he wanted to continue unfettered in his relationship with the young woman. Okay. Tuesday, a New South Wales Supreme Court Justice Ian Harris found Dawson guilty of committing murder, even without a body. There was no body. Okay. He said, nope, all the circumstances put together, I do believe that Christopher Dawson is guilty of murdering his former wife 4 decades ago on a Sydney northern beach. He murdered Lynette Dawson and is responsible for her demise. Okay. Listen, he said, none of the circumstances considered alone can establish Mr. Dawson's guilt. But when regard is had to their combined force, I'm left with no doubt. Here is proof that you can present circumstantial evidence 40 years later to a judge, and they can understand it and see it, link everything together. Okay. They do agree. The defense fought tooth and nail to keep this out of court, saying it's 40 years old. None of the evidence can be trusted. None of the statements can be trusted. Nothing that anybody has to say is not tainted by everything that's been going on in the last 40 years and that podcast. They fought tooth and nail. They lost. They said, no, let's hear all sides. I want to hear their recollections. You'll get the chance to push forward against them on their recollections. You can challenge it with any evidence that you have in his defense. But we are going forward with the case as it is. There's enough here. Okay. He said there was no doubt that it should go forward. The only rational inference that he could come to is that Lynette Dawson died on or about January 8th of 1982 as a result of a conscious or voluntary act committed by Christopher Dawson. Okay. Harrison said his findings had been fortified by the lies Dawson told after his wife was murdered, which he grouped into 4 categories. Those that Dawson told to JC, the teenager he was involved with, and others about their relationship, claims he wanted to continue his marriage with Lynette Dawson, lies he told which suggested she was still alive, and those which suggested she may have left their home of her own accord. The lies, he said, were designed to deflect all or any attention away from Dawson's involvement in the death. Earlier, Harrison had rejected the possibility that Lynette Dawson voluntarily abandoned her husband and her daughters. They were then aged 2 and 4, to vanish without a trace. There was no evidence that Lynette Dawson was having an affair. There was no evidence that Lynette Dawson was unhappy in her marriage or that she would ever leave her children. She was known to be a doting and caring wife and mother of her 2 children, happy. She was seen alive out before that with no problem. He dismissed claims, however, that she was seen afterwards alive and that she had contacted her husband, because he had no proof of any of it. The whole of the circumstantial evidence satisfies me that Lynette Dawson is dead and that she did not voluntarily abandon her home. The main reason for Dawson's application to dismiss these charges was because of the publicity generated in the case by the Australian newspaper Teacher's Pet Podcast. It was published in 2018, and at the same time as the NSW police were gaining investigation into Lynette Dawson's disappearance. The podcast, of course, is done by investigative reporter, Hadley Thomas, and it was listened to tens and millions of times. Okay. He did a really great job. He uncovered new evidence that indicated Dawson may have killed his wife in order to continue an affair with a former student. All right. He also honed in on what he suggested were serious errors in the police investigation of the case. The failure of the New South Wales Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions to charge Dawson, despite 2 separate inquest findings that he had been responsible for the death of Lynette. Now, this is why this investigative reporter went so hard on this. There were 2 inquests. Both of them said that he had been responsible for the death, and yet no charges were filed. Now, I understand in court of law, you want to win, and you don't want to file charges if you don't think there's enough evidence to actually convict the person. We know here in the United States, there are plenty of cases that the prosecution is almost dead to rights that this person is guilty, but the evidence isn't enough that they know they're going to win, and they may not prosecute at that time. They may hold off because they don't want to prosecute and fail, because you can't prosecute again. All right? Double jeopardy for the same crime without new evidence and going through a whole bunch of loops and bells and you know what to try to get things overturned, that you can get some kind of an appeal or get it tossed. All right. Lawyers for Dawson were complaining that Judge Harrison was unable to make his finding beyond reasonable doubt, in part because the police had failed to properly investigate reporting sightings of Lynette Dawson. And the judge said poppycock. There were no real reported sightings of Lynette. They all came from the husband. And that was meant to obscure justice. Said the murder, they also accused him of saying the motive for the murder did not make any sense, because if he wanted to continue his affair with the young woman, killing his wife would only create more problems for Dawson. That doesn't mean he didn't do it. They're saying he wanted her out of the picture because of the younger woman. And that kind of makes sense. It could have made to a heated argument that they had where the killing happened. But saying that just her being killed is going to make his life complicated, well, I don't really think a murderer thinks about that when they do it. Or they wouldn't do it. I mean, The fact that they're trying to use that for the reason that Harrison, a judge, can't really go forward with his actual opinion on this, that kind of struck me as a little like, what? Really? Okay. All right. Also, you should note that Dawson himself and his attorneys did not give evidence during the 2-month trial. It finished on July 11th. The sentencing has happened. Harrison spent some time since then deliberating on his verdict. And unlike when a jury delivers a verdict, Harrison is required to outline every reason for the decision that he made. Okay, and this I want to read to you. Harrison said the prosecution had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Lynette Dawson is dead and that she was killed by Dawson with the possible involvement of assistance of others, and that he and possibly others disposed of her body. He also made clear on multiple occasions that Dawson did not have to prove nor disprove any evidence in the case, which they didn't. Harrison accepted the time frame of the case given by the prosecution, that around December 22nd of 1981, Dawson and J.C., the young woman, traveled to Queensland, but the attempt at starting a new life failed after J.C. became unwell and said she missed her family. After they arrived home, she told Dawson she wanted to end the relationship, which he did not want to happen. Harrison found that out. The pair then spent Christmas Day and New Year's Eve together. On New Year's Day, January 2nd of 1982, J.C. traveled north to Southwest Rocks, where she camped with her sisters and friends, and she contacted Dawson every day via reverse charge call from a payphone, as Dawson had told her to do so. It was alleged Dawson killed his wife on January 8th of 1982. Harrison said that while it was often immaterial when a particular offense occurred, in this case it was an indispensable link in the chain of reasoning upon which the Crown relies. Harrison agreed that Lynette Dawson died on this date, dismissing claims by Dawson that his wife had called him after this date as lies. He said it was simply absurd and defied common sense, that the only person Lynette Dawson would remain in contact with after leaving the house would be the very person who was the reason for her departure. Similarly, he said he could not accept Dawson's description of what his wife said in the conversations, which included that she told him she needed more time, was working things out, and that he should not worry about her. It is, in my view, fanciful to suggest the conversations as lacking in content and pregnant with cliches ever occurred, Harrison is quoted as saying. He dismissed several reportings of Lynette Dawson, which occurred after January 8th between the 10th and the 12th. Harrison found Dawson picked up J.C. from Southwest Rocks and took her back to Sydney. And he told her, "Lynn's gone. She's not coming back. Come back to Sydney with me and help look after the kids. Live with me." Harrison accepted that Dawson had become infatuated with J.C. before she left Cromer High School as a minor. He found that although Lynette Dawson had confronted J.C. with the paradoxically genteel observation that J.C. had been taking liberties with her husband, she had remained hopeful of reconciling with Dawson. This was one of the series of reasons which Harrison gave to dismiss the possibility that Lynette Dawson left of her own accord. They're saying that Lynette knew about the affair, but that Lynette was working it out. She wanted to stay in the marriage. She wanted to work things out with him. She didn't want to leave. She confronted JC and said that she was going to try to save her marriage. Harrison said the prosecution had provided multiple reasons to explain the unlikelihood that Lynette Dawson had done this, and he had found them strongly persuasive when considered together. These reasons included that she adored her children. She was mentally stable. She had not taken any clothing or personal belongings with her, and she had made plans recently for the future. Harrison said that to accept submissions made by the lawyers for Dawson that his wife had left the Bayview home of her own accord would be to replace reasonable possibility with frail speculation. In other words, it makes more sense that the other occurred. not what you're saying. But he also cautioned against making general gender-based assumptions that Lynette Dawson had not simply left because she was a mother and that women are somehow expected to abide by a higher standard. He doesn't believe that that's true. He says her actions are the reason he believes she didn't leave, not just because she's a mother. Dawson's lawyer, Greg Walsh, told the judge after the verdict of his client that it would likely apply for an appeal. I mean, and before he's going to apply for bail rather before his sentencing hearing because a date had not been set for the hearing. But he's actually going to get that sentencing. He's guilty. Walsh suggested his client would appeal Tuesday's verdict also. Mr. Dawson has always asserted, and he still does, his absolute innocence of the crime that he's been convicted of. He'll continue to assert that innocence, and he'll certainly appeal. Dawson would find custody difficult, Walsh said, partly because he had been diagnosed with dementia that could be linked to his past rugby league career. Anyway, Dawson's family was with him but left the court with him without actually giving statements to the press. Okay. Thank you, Robsky. Yes, and Robsky's letting us know that there is a British TV show based on a real murder called Landscapers, and that's worth a watch too. It's a well-acted show. I'll check that out. Okay, but I am very glad. This actual podcast did some good here. But do you see how they actually, it's like a double-edged sword. In this case, it worked out. It was an investigative reporter. They did a really, really good job. They did get hauled into court. They did pull down that podcast, though, to prevent further intervention, going. But here in America, it would be really hard to get a jury trial, wouldn't it, with something like that? We've saw this recently with civil cases, not criminal cases. Okay, we're watching it actually in the Manson case. We're watching it. We have watched it in the Depp Heard case, where YouTubers, podcasters were going over evidence and doing everything, myself included, with my friend Mandy. We looked at everything. We read all of the briefs. We interjected ourselves with opinion. We didn't change evidence or anything like that. But had we been before the case was started, I wonder if someone would have pulled anybody in. I mean, didn't they try? Didn't the actual Heard team try to pull the umbrella guy in for his reporting into their court case? But here we go. It can be dangerous. So all I would say is I try to only report what I know, or like not like a reporter. I'm not. I'm a YouTuber. But I try to state, let's say state rather than report, only what I hear and see and can document and resource as actually true, as actually have some other tangible evidence that I can look at that says, yeah, that probably happened, or yeah, that, like the actual legal documents, like the actual evidence, things like that. You got to be careful. And Hadley Thomas was. And so this case went forward. And, Hadley Thomas is responsible for getting this case solved. Yes, other people worked on it. But yeah, them bringing a light on it and being so successful on it, especially on the fact that there were several reasons why it should have went forward already. Good job. Good job. And again, thank you, Robsky. Thank you, Verillion, for bringing it forward. Actually, reading into this was fascinating. It kind of reminded me why I love this, reporting to you guys all of this kind of stuff that happens, the little quirks, the tweaks, the things, that go on. And the little odd parts about the legal end of it that intrigue me, and just trying to keep it straight and letting you know and making it a little entertaining for you. I hope you were entertained by our cases today. They were all quite different. They all had a little something something that I wanted you to be aware of. Yeah. Let me just look for some questions and then we're going to wrap this up because we did go a little bit longer today, but I thought it was worth hanging out to hear about the Dawson case. Who's in the picture, Miss? This is Chris and Lynette Dawson. Chris was just convicted of the murder of his wife Lynette from 40 years ago, and that's why they're up there. I wanted to put them up instead of the article because Lynette needs to be she's getting her justice, and we need to honor her name, her picture, for her children and those. They did, yeah. Robsky, I'm not sure. I do believe she was the babysitter. I do know he met her when he was a phys ed teacher in college, in not college, in high school. And yeah, this JC, well, she wanted what she wanted. And the wife knew about it. The wife actually talked to her. But you know what? The podcast. Go watch the podcast. Some of that is now back up. I believe they're going to be able to put it back up. So look for it if it's not already, because they've already presented all the evidence, and it can't interfere anymore. Okay. And there's plenty of articles on it, and it's definitely fascinating. It's worth your time. She was absolutely beautiful, and a young mother. She had two small girls at the time. But yeah. Oh, well, let's fill the chat with otters and cupcakes, and we'll just say, although it's Monday, have a great day. It's my second Sunday. I refuse to celebrate Mondays, but it wasn't so bad. And I will see you all again soon if there's no questions. Don't forget to like, share, comment on the back of the video, and always, like you did for these, please bring your comments forward, bring your suggestions forward. I love checking all this stuff out. I don't always get to them right away, but I do get to them. I do read into them. I do love the interaction, and that you guys like this stuff as much as I do, and as long as you do, I will definitely keep doing it. But on that, let's just say good night for today. All right. And have a great one.